Welcome back, Kings fans. You're watching the Royal Half Radio Postgame Show with your host, Jesse Cohen.
And the Kings break. Here is Robitaille at center. Over the line. Robitaille to Palffy and on goal. Shot. Score! Kings win it in overtime. Ziggy Palffy with 7.7 seconds left.
Welcome back, Kings fans. I'm Jesse Cohen. For those of you old enough to remember, the audio you just heard was Nick Nixon calling an overtime goal by Ziggy Palffy. Scored on November 6th, I want to say 2003. I thought it would be fun to have a little this date in Kings history leading off the show. Unfortunately, there's nothing fun about tonight. Just came back from the press conference with Jim Hiller. Spoke to Mikey Anderson and Trevor Moore in the locker room after the game. And, man, this game was not fun. The fans booed at the end of the game. I completely understand why they did. That one was tough. Jim Hiller was asked what was the most disappointing part of that game, and he said, there was more than one, basically. So I'm going to open it up to you guys watching. What was the worst part of that game? Because there were a lot. That was a tough one. I feel like this team should be a lot better than it is, not just in the record, but like games like this. They just shouldn't be losing this way. The shorthanded goals, turnovers, the second goal that Forsberg allowed was just tough. Moore did play, Shirley Jacob. Just a real tough game, real hard to root for a team like that. We're going to go into some texts. I hate that I love the guy, but Corey Perry is fantastic. When was the last time the Kings had a net front agitator presence? I would say the captain, Dustin Brown. What say you, Jesse? Yeah, you're not wrong. Too many times this season when one of the new defensemen tries to clear the puck out of the zone, it is a weak pass and it gets turned over, or it goes directly to an opponent's stick. Happens way too often, and the problem with the 5-forward power play is giving up shorthanded goals. Doesn't take a rocket science to tell you that would be a result. Wouldn't mind it if the power play was scoring at 25% or higher, but they're not. Time to reel in the mad scientist and add Clark or Doughty to power play. 9 minutes left. Need another comeback. Yeah. It's another text. First-time texter, long-time listener, was at the game tonight. Disappointed that a 40-year-old was the only one giving our team a spark. Sad to say, but Kopitar really disappointed me. Let's win next game. Do you believe, Cam? I mean, some people were messaging me during the game asking if Anze Kopitar was still injured, and my initial response was that hadn't occurred to me. But looking at how he played, some of the missed chances, I mean, it's possible, right? It's totally possible. Common sense ain't so common now, says Kings have been outplayed in 15 games so far. Kings have been outplayed in 14 of them. I don't disagree, and I think that's 9 out of 15 games that the Kings have given up 3 unanswered goals. I didn't check recently, but I'm going to go ahead and check the deserve to win-o-meter. I think this is yet another game. The deserve to win-o-meter says the Kings deserved to win, but they didn't. I'm looking at it right now. It's tabulating. It's north of 55%. So, I mean, the Kings continue to play well, but not play well enough to win. Jay says, I have to think the issue is coaching. Look at Anaheim. Kings need a coach who also knows what he's doing. Hiller's lost the team, I feel. I wish it wasn't that simple, but as I said to somebody in the media as we were leaving Jim Hiller's presser, you can point to any specific thing and say, well, it's not this person's fault. It's not that player's fault. It's not the goalie's fault that the turnovers are turned right over in front of him. It's not the coach's fault that the players are taking puck over the glass penalties. I think it was the 5th one so far this season tonight, if not more. And sure, none of that is any one person's fault. But at the end of the day, people are hired to oversee the collective body of work. And it's their responsibility. This is one of the lessons I've repeated time and time again on All the Kings Men or any other platform I've been on. It doesn't have to be somebody's fault for it to be their responsibility. And if you're the coach or a general manager of a team, same as if you're an executive of a company, if things aren't happening over a stretch of time, it's your responsibility. It may not be your fault. I didn't think it was John Stevens' fault that the team fell apart early in the 2018-19 season, but it was his responsibility. and he couldn't stop it, so he lost his job. Now, I think it's still a little bit too early for that kind of talk, but, one of the questions is what has to happen? They go out on a 6-game road trip now. The record, I think they're, a game above 500 at this point. And it's a game above 500, but it's a disappointing game above 500. I didn't expect the Kings to come out unbeaten through 15, but they're 6-5-4. That's not who this team is meant to be. 3 goals from the center. I mean, I could just go over all the stats that everybody else keeps repeating, and none of it means anything, because at the end of the day, this team's not good enough. This team should be better. And the frustrating thing, I think, for me is that we've seen them be better for stretches at a time. You come back, you erase 3-goal leads. It means your team is decent. It means your team has the talent, has the ability. And then a game like tonight, where you go up, you tie the game at 1, you come back, you score another one, you take the lead, and then just give it away. I don't know. I mean, I don't know if you guys can tell or not, but I'm completely flummoxed by this performance. Parker, I believe this is the Parker I know, suggests that it's time to trade Quentin Byfield, giving him enough chance. The longer we wait, the less his trade value is. Well, Parker, if you don't think he's got any trade value, or think his trade value is declining, excuse me, what exactly do you think the return is going to be? If I were a cat, I'd have a scrungy face. I'm not entirely sure I know what that means, Matt, but I mean, I'm just going to look at some of the stats in this game, because, as we said, the deserve to win-o-meter says the Kings should have won, which doesn't mean anything. Jeff Malott, Alex Turcotte, Brant Clark having decent nights metric-wise, and amongst some of the players who played the fewest amount of minutes. Let me ask you this, chat, as they say. What does it say that Corey Perry scores, the biggest goal of the game and then ends the game with a fight? Like, shouldn't it be anybody but Corey Perry? Shouldn't the team not have to look to its oldest member to do that? That's just I don't know. That's all I could think of when he was out there having the fight. Was like, okay, good for him. It's great. I love him. He's been better than advertised. He brings everything that you'd want him to bring. But if he's the only one doing it, if him being here doesn't inspire the rest of the team, then what's the point? All you've done is force the 40-year-old man to get beat up in front of, a less than full house at Crypto.com Arena. I don't know. That's not that impressive to me, I guess. I mean, it's an impressive effort out of him, but the team as a whole. And I said it a couple games ago, and I sort of hoped that the Winnipeg win would turn things around, and hopefully it will on this road trip. But the answers and the rhetoric are starting to feel very familiar, which is, tonight at Jim Hiller's media availability, right? The answers all came back to, we need to go to the front of the net. Where did Kopitar score? Front of the net. We're not getting to the front of the net enough. We're not getting to the dirty areas. If you want to score, you have to score from the dirty areas. Well, okay. So go to the dirty areas. Again, it's not, Jim Hiller can't make the players go to the dirty areas, but if they're not going to the dirty areas, then I don't know. But like I said, it may not be his fault, but it is his responsibility. Yes, Jacob, Perry is a competitor. It's true, but like I said, if he's not inspiring, if he's not the kind of player, I hate to bring up direct comparisons, but a guy like Lizotte or whoever that, the coaches would say they drag their line mates into the fray. They drag their teammates into the fray. If Corey Perry's not dragging his teammates into the fray with him, then what good is it? I hate to be sort of totally down on it, but it's okay. So he scored a goal and he got in a fight, but they still lost 5-2. Losing 5-2 or 5-1 is not a significant difference. They go out on the road for a 6-game road trip now. It's a tough road trip. It's a long road trip. It's tied for one of the longest of the year By the way, I don't know if you guys can hear all the noise behind me. Please let me know if you can or not. Maybe I need to pick a different location next time. Why aren't we giving Portillo a chance? I don't know the answer to that. I mean, the real answer is because Anton Forsberg and Darcy Kemper are experienced NHL goaltenders, and regardless of what reaction fans might have to a single game, that's just not how professional sports works. Like, you sign these guys to contracts, you're going to give them every inch of rope they have before you make changes like that. Somebody asked me a number. Background noise is T. What does T mean? Somebody asked me tonight why Forsberg and not Kemper, and louder. Okay, all right, I'll go somewhere else next time. Sorry about that. What does he think? He thinks that every arena Darcy Kemper can't play every game, and so you're gonna have to start Anton Forsberg eventually, and you can't just avoid him because you don't trust him. It's just not. It's not a reliable strategy. It's not how professional sports work. It just isn't. So now, if Anton Forsberg has 3 or 4 more games where he's costing them goals specifically that are on him, like the second one tonight, I don't know. Who knows, right? Like, I didn't think they would ever assign Cal Peterson to the minors, and they did. So who knows? But yeah, the as tough as it is, when the goaltenders play well, they win, and when they don't, they lose. And I wish it were more complicated than that. But 5-on-5, which is the sort of fallback for those defending the team, 5-on-5, they play well. The problem is 5-on-5, they play close. And if you're playing a close game 5-on-5, but you're losing in the margins, and the margins being goaltenders, special teams play, whatever, then that's a disastrous recipe, right? That's why you want to not play your 5-on-5 games close, because you don't, then you're not leaving it up to the margins, because you're not going to be able to control how your goaltender plays. You're not going to be able to control how the other team's special teams play. But like tonight, I don't know what the score was 5-on-5, but I'm going to try and figure it out. So the Kings scored 1 even strength goal. Florida scored 4 even strength goals. So they still wind up losing. But, that shorthanded goal, that was kind of it, right? It was 1-0, 1-1, 2-1. Kings have a lead. Then Marchand scores to tie it up, which would have been the backbreaker. Then Reinhart has the third. Then that shorthanded goal, that's the difference between a 1-goal lead and this. And Eldritch 33.99. The rebuild did start when they acquired Cal Peterson. It ended when COVID ended, and the two are unrelated. I get we spent money on Forsberg, but I thought Portillo should have been our backup from the start of the season. Looked good last year in his 1 start when called up with Ontario. So there's a lot of fights I see, or a lot of points, or a lot of arguments I see get made that are not necessarily wrong, right? If you think Portillo should be the backup, there's nothing I can say about that. Then you think he should be the backup. And he's certainly of an age and a point in his career where if he's not going to be the backup soon, the clock is ticking on him. But since he's not, now that we're 14 games into the season and you have Forsberg on the roster and you have Kemper on the roster, every conversation about what should have happened in August or September is kind of out the window. Like, people can say, well, I don't want Corey Perry on the roster. Okay, well, he's on the roster. So if the Kings don't win 3 games on this road trip, will there be a coaching change? So if they go 2-4 on the road trip, I don't know, because I don't know. Sorry, I'm talking louder because I'm trying to drown out the noise in my own headphones. I don't know if a coaching change is an option at this point, and I'm not suggesting that they should or ought to, or that I'm a proponent of it. I just don't know if they will, because Todd McClellan was paid enough to make him the highest paid coach in the league when he was hired. And I don't know, and this is pure speculation on my part, I don't know that you can pull that magic trick more than once in a blue moon. Like, I don't, who would you bring in to replace the coach? And if you're a head coach in the NHL with a resume, with any kind of experience, with any kind of options, why would you come to a team with no number 1 center next year, a general manager who is, no disrespect to Ken Holland or his career, but he's a lame duck general manager because we know he's not here for a long time, right? If you hired Ken Holland and you said, well, he's here to put us over the top and we don't know ... when his tenure will be over, then you go, okay, fine, there's a future. But we know Ken Holland is not going to stick around forever for a number of different reasons. They're waiting for Cooper to get canned. I mean, I just don't think that's how it works, Matt. And I see somebody says DeBoer. If you're Pete DeBoer and you presumably have options, why would you come to a team where Adrian Kempe doesn't have a contract, Andre Kopitar's retiring, Andrei Kuzmenko doesn't have a contract, you have no idea what the goaltending is going to be like in the future. You don't know who your GM is going to be. You know, if they fire, let's say they fired their head coach and replaced him, that's a red flag. That means the season is not going well. So could you come in and be the Daryl Sutter? Yeah, sure, you could. But more often than not, if you're coming in to take over a team, it's because things are going wrong. So what kind of coach, why would a Pete DeBoer or a coach with options join a team where the red flag has gone up and also you have all this uncertainty about the future? Why wouldn't you just wait a month or 2 or 3 months or 6 months, survey the landscape and pick the better option? I just don't think it's as simple as, well, and like I said, I don't know that you can throw a boatload of money at the next guy and say, well, hey, ownership, we did this once already with Todd McClellan, so write us a check again to go out, because even though we're having to make the change mid-season on a season that had high expectations, trust us, we know what we're doing. I'm just not sure how many times you can do that. So I don't think that a coaching change is necessarily on the table, for the same reason that I don't think that a lot of things are on the table, because it's just the finances of it. And I know nobody wants to think about it, but I do think that sort of stuff matters. That's just my personal opinion. Parker, I don't know what capital Bruce means, but if they don't have a good road trip, I do think the blood pressure rises in the room, and I don't think anything's off the table. I just laid out all the reasons I think that, stuff isn't likely, but it could be. Anything could happen, right? If they have a disastrous road trip, then anything's possible. And every day that we get closer to July 1st that Adrian Kempe doesn't have a contract is another day of concern, frankly. Common Sense saying, so Common House says Dave Tippett could be a short-term hire. He has a Holland connection. I mean, anybody could be a short-term hire, right? Like any NHL coach would want another crack at an NHL coaching job. I just think if you're a coach with a good reputation, if you're the kind of coach that a fan base would want to come in and replace your current coach, why would that coach want to come to this situation instead of waiting? I don't know what the other teams' coaching situations are out there, but somebody mentioned John Cooper. Well, if the Tampa Bay Lightning are going to fire John Cooper at some point, then there'll be another coach out there on the market. So I don't know. Yes, Jacob is correct. There were a lot of empty seats this season. That's part of the finances. I'm not entirely. I mean, ticket sales represent a much larger percentage of revenue for hockey teams than the other 4 sports. But I don't think it's as simple as like, oh, home attendance is bad, therefore they can't afford to pay, or they don't want to pay Adrian Kempe X amount of money. Like, I just don't think the budgets are the same for that. I think that's, I get it. And to be clear, the attendance on this homestand was not great. Now, a lot of that could be chalked up to the Dodgers World Series run. A lot of that, well, I think that's probably about it, honestly. LA is not exactly a huge college football town. But I can imagine that budgets are pressed thin with people going to Dodgers games. This is the real question that I'm curious about. Eldridge 3399 wants to know, who goes on waivers first, Malott or Kuzmenko? When Warren Fogle comes back, and it should be sooner than later, although we don't have any kind of timetable. He was in a red jersey this morning at the morning skate. But he looked in practice and on morning skates, he has looked very active and very healthy. So I'm expecting him within the next 3 games, just personally, based on my own experience with observing timelines and when guys come back. When he comes back, they have to make room for him. They, or actually, no, they don't. What am I talking about? They have one empty spot to add him. I think. Let me just double check my roster here real quick. Yes, when Warren Fogle comes back, they've got room because they assigned Kyle Burrows to Ontario. So they have room for Warren Fogle. So that problem has been solved. There's no problem. I can't bring back the background talkers. I'm sorry. They got on the elevator. They left. New head coach Matt Green. I don't know if Matt Green wants to be a coach, but I would be interested in seeing how it goes. Sorry, I'm just scrolling backwards through some of the comments. Coaches want money to live in cities they like and have massive egos. Plenty of reasons not to take this job for a good coach, but plenty of good ones to do it also. Sure. I mean, yes, every person is a different person. So who knows? All it takes is the right coach to decide that they want to do it. I'm just wondering if you have, like, we're talking about guys with a ton of money, right? If you're going to hire a name coach to fix everything, if you're going to find a coach, and now I'm just talking directly at Jacob because he knows he's irritating. If you want to hire a big swing coach, those kinds of coaches have options. So in order to get them to come here, you have to either convince them that you're giving them job security or a ton of money or a ton of opportunity to win. If you're firing a coach in the middle of the season, the last one is off the table. You're not giving them a guaranteed opportunity to win because things have gone terribly wrong. That's why they're in a position to take that job. I'm not sure about the money. I don't control the purse strings of the company, but I have a sneaking suspicion that since they already paid Todd McClellan a lot of money, that's off the table. And then I forgot what I even said the first option was, but and whatever, I'm repeating myself. I just don't think it's as simple as all that. All right, we're going to go back to the text. 1, ridiculous to start a cold Forsberg and give him a game right after Darcy has an amazing effort. 2, the power play is terrible. If you put Corey Perry on it, at least play him at the net. What is the point of him and Kempe, our best shooter, at the point? Then our second unit has nothing. Even when it scores, it looks bad. Before tonight, our net power play percentage was 4th in the league because we gave up shorties. 2 units with guys that can score. Power play 1. Clark, Kempe, Kuzmenko, Perry, and Turcotte. Face-off, puck retriever. Power play 2. Doughty, Fiala, Kopitar, Moore, and Byfield. Each can score. And because it's a power play, I think we should try to score. It's so frustrating to have a good team be so bad. Maybe we were better on the road because Hiller had less options. I don't know about that. But yeah, the power play is crazy to me. Felt like Christopher Walken there for a second. It's crazy. It's a terrible expression. But yeah, I've always wondered why different players were played at different spots on the ice on the power play. And Kempe at the point, I understand he's the guy who can throw a hip check and play defense. And there are certain players you don't want anywhere near the blue line, but he's obviously your best option to score on the power play. So why is he the guy the furthest away from the net? I don't understand it. I've never understood it. Power play. Crystal wants to know, why don't we talk about Newell Brown? I mean, partially because every time the power play struggles, which is a lot over the last 30 years, I don't know how long ago was John Ben Boxmeer here. Longtime Kings fans will know that the cliche is to call for the dismissal of the power play coach. I'm not sure it's always wrong, but it is sort of like, it's just sort of a cliche. Babcock is the next pariah up now that Coach Q is working again. Would be nice to see the former Ducks coach with the Kings worked with Perry so far. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, that is the perfect example of a kind of coach who would take the option despite all the things I laid out before, because that's a guy with a resume, a track record of success, and no options, right? Because of, his reputation and everything that's happened in the past. I don't know that is the solution. I don't know how well it would go over here, but that's an exception to what I was talking about earlier. Rich LMX 62, Hiller should have been gone after last season's playoff collapse. I mean, I know a lot of people feel that way. Full disclosure, I happen to like Jim Hiller personally a great deal, so it's difficult for me to talk about objectively, but I understand why an organization in the position that the Kings were in doesn't feel like firing him was the right move. I've laid out all the reasons I think there aren't a lot of solid options to replace him. And then on top of that, the team had, and I know people are sick of it, and I don't think 105 points is like, I don't think you should hang a banner patting yourself on the back for 105 points, but the team looked good when it looked good. And I do think the team should have beat the Oilers last year. So there are there were things to be positive about coming out of that series, even if you feel that Jim Hiller is the reason that they lost that series. I think it's fair to say, well, it'll get better. In the past, I have criticized the franchise for giving up too soon on certain things, on momentum. When they lost to Vegas in 2018 and they went out and made a couple additions, I didn't agree with that. I said, if you have faith in this team to get better, you have to let them get better. Don't go add Kovalchuk. So if you believe in the team last year and you thought that they should have won, excuse me, and I do think they should have won. I'm going to get a lozenge here. Apologies, everybody. Then I think you have to let the architect of that have another go at it. Now, unfortunately, it's off to a shaky start at best. It's not terrible. And I think, honestly, this is a little going to go off on a jag here, but I think part of the reason that I'm so frustrated is that it's not terrible. If they were just getting their doors blown off every night, I'd be like, yeah, well, the wheels fell off. This is terrible. You can point to this is the mistake. That's a mistake. This should have happened. Blah, 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 blah. But they're not terrible. They're just not good enough. And I think in sports in particular, not good enough hurts more than just terrible. Maybe that's recency bias, but I can remember seasons where the Kings were not good. They were just bad, and you knew that they were going to be bad, and the whole season was just bad. And, you sort of get used to it, and it's fine. It's seasons like 2018-19 or 2014-15 or this one where you're like, okay, what is happening? This team does not look like it did 6 months ago, 7 months ago. And you ask the people who should have the answers, what needs to change? You're saying, I don't understand. I'm watching this team, and I don't see what a very simple, obvious thing to point to. And the answers are, it's fine. We just got to keep working. Have faith. It'll turn itself around. And that's just not a very satisfying answer. It might be the only answer that you can reasonably expect, but it's not satisfying. And, I don't know how many people, if you were here at the game tonight, leave a comment. But I heard boos as I was getting ready to leave. And last year, I think they lost the game at home to Buffalo. And I commented on it on the postgame show and a couple of other places. This year, there's nothing to say. I get it. If I had paid for a ticket tonight, I'd have booed too. This was a tough game to watch, especially the third period. They beat Winnipeg. That was great. But other than the Winnipeg game and the Chicago game, which were way closer than they should have been, I'm not sure they've looked that great all year. And this was a game that, yet another game that the deserve to win meter says that they deserve to win, that they lost, which I think I said, what was the fifth time that's happened this year? Sorry, I'm going to go back to the comments here. Their options aren't the Panthers or Oilers. Their options are teams that are off to a garbage start. Have to wait till the offseason to teams say, okay, Jacob, I'm not fighting with you about this anymore. Bring back Jamie Compon. That's what I'm talking about. Ha, ha, ha. I get the frustration, but Hiller can't do anything about bad mistakes on the ice. No, he can't, but that's what I said earlier. It may not be his fault, but it is his responsibility. The head coach's job, amongst many of his jobs, is to make sure that the team is focused and ready to play. And one of the things that I was taught growing up is that if a team has too many men on the ice penalties, or they're not ready to start at the beginning of a game, or they're constantly losing the special teams battle, those things come down to focus, and that comes down to coaching. Doesn't necessarily mean that the coach is a bad coach. Doesn't necessarily mean that the coach is doing a bad job. It just means that for whatever reason, that coach is incapable of stopping the slide. And that's what happened in John Stevens' final season. I don't think John Stevens is a bad coach, but for whatever reason, he could not stop that slide in 2018-19. This season is nowhere near as bad as that season was, but we're starting to see signs of a slide, and it's terrifying because for all the reasons everybody's familiar with, right? No contract for Adrian Kempe, Kopitar retiring at the end of the year. And sorry, I'm just in such a bad mood tonight, you guys. This loss really put me off. This should have been a nice season, right? 4 years in a row making the playoffs, 105 points last year, tied for most in franchise history. Kopitar announces his retirement. He's going out. We're going to get sort of, the final chapter of an incredible career. And, Brant Clark's going to evolve. Quentin Byfield and Kevin Fiala are going to emerge as this sort of replacement top line. We're going to see what Adrian Kempe can do. Nope. No, we've got 40-year-old Corey Perry tied for the team lead in goals. Power play keeps giving up shorthanded goals. Vezina finalist goaltender is sort of 50-50 as to his starts so far in the season. And the fans are booing 15 games into the season. I don't know how many home games it is. Was it 6 or 7? And the fans are booing, and I don't blame them. Could be as easy as quarterback seeing Perry play and becoming the next Perry. Okay. It's one thing to lose half your games. It's another to play extremely boring hockey every single night. Yes, this is a comment I can get behind and agree with. One of the problems with these games and with the team over the last, 10 years, 15 years, is that it's not fun. And I said it, I don't know, it was last year or 2 years ago when they went on a sort of stretch of losing. I can handle losing if there's something to talk about. But like tonight, there's just nothing to talk about, right? Like they just got beat. Soup to nuts. It wasn't much exciting. They didn't, they had a couple chances, okay, I think Byfield hit the crossbar. There were a couple plays where it looked like Kopitar might have, if he had been a half an inch closer to the net or his stick didn't chance, but 5-2, nah, it's just boring. It's just not great. King's House says sigh and then sigh again. Let it out. This game sucked. Yeah, no, it did. All right, not sure about the deserve to win meter, but the eye test looked like the Panthers were knocking Kings down left and right. I think that's why Perry decided to retaliate and fight at the end. Yeah, the only reason I keep bringing up the deserve to win meter is that by their own standard, they're supposed to be right 64% of the time. And it's just interesting to me that the Kings' results have been so far off what it says, because what it means is something's going on. And, it could be as simple as goaltending, but it just feels like that's not it, right? Like tonight, I didn't think Forsberg had a particularly great night, but I'm not sure how many of those are his fault, capital F fault, right? Like the second one, definitely on him. First one, no, that was just a chaotic play. Kuzmenko, alone in front of the net. That is not an ideal situation. Breakaway, shorthanded, I don't know. Turnover. Kempe turns the puck over. All of a sudden, it's a 2-on-0 in the zone. What are you supposed to do? That Winnipeg win was so great, and you really hoped that it was going to, lead into this one, and they were going to build on that momentum, and they didn't. And it's tough, man. I don't know. I wish I had more to say than that. I'm just going to keep repeating myself. And I always, the worst part of this is I always laugh when I hear other people saying, I don't know, man. I'm like, well, come on, you got to know something. You got to say something. This is the game they had a lead in. They had a lead. They allowed their opponent to score 3 unanswered goals again. I think, 9 out of 15 games, I think I said. Taylor said, couldn't watch tonight, but sounds like we're back to weirdness. 100%. This is, but I'm kind of over the Bizarro season thing, because Bizarro season sort of implies, okay, it's weirdness and it's out of control. Tonight, it just kind of looked like I don't want to say they gave up, because that's not true, because they had chances, but just like Winnipeg never had an opportunity to win that game, I don't believe. Once it was 2-2, I never really felt like the Kings were a threat to score. I felt like Bobrovsky was going to stop them, and he did after it was 2-2, right? He stopped everything they had at it. Dumoulin looks that way. I'll say it. Forsberg should have stopped a couple of those goals, not counting the bad play. Yeah, listen, Forsberg didn't have a great game. I'm just not prepared to say this is 100% on him. I'm not prepared to say, oh, the Kings would have won, but they got goalied. This is just, whatever. All right, I'm ignoring you from now on, Jacob. The Jets game was a goaltending battle. It was. He's not wrong about that. Do lines get shuffled again to start the roadie? Who knows? But for example, tonight, let's just look at the time on ice. Phil Deneau played 9 minutes and 15 seconds of ice time at even strength. Now, there was a pretty even distribution of minutes, so it's not like he was well off the pace. Drew Doughty led the team all strengths at 17 minutes and 6 seconds. So that's a pretty wide distribution. All right, Ethan is going to hop on here real quick. Ethan, what's going on?
Hey, Jesse, how's it going?
Not great.
Yeah, Yeah, I just came in on here to rant just for a second.
Go
I
for
had
it.
so much hope. I know it's only, maybe not even a quarter of the season in, but man, it's. I know last year we had that Jets win, and then after that they had like a 7-game win streak, and everything was like, wow, these guys can actually really, really like. I think this is going to be a good season, and from there they had, they had the best. Oh my, what's the record at home? And then we were like, wow,
Mm-hmm.
this is the year that the Kings are really gonna beat the Oilers if we do end up. And we had the whole, we were up with them in playoffs, and then we just, it just fell short again. But I don't know. It's like they don't. There's something missing with this group, and I don't know what it is. And I don't know if it's like the mix up of the lines that just keeps on like getting jumbled around, and the guys just don't have like that chemistry together, or if it's just something's not gluing with these guys, something's really not gelling, and I feel like it's just gonna get worse from here on out.
Well, so were you at the game tonight, Ethan?
I was watching it at home.
Okay. Could you hear the boos through the camera at home on the
Oh,
TV?
yeah, I don't know. The sound quality was really good today. You could even hear when people were like screaming, "Hey, Bobrovsky," and everyone goes, "You suck!" Like usually you can't
All
hear
right.
that, you know.
Sure.
You can't hear that, but yeah, you could definitely hear it. Absolutely.
Well,
I'd
that's
be
a bad look.
thinking if I was there.
Sorry, say that again.
I said if I was there, I would probably be booing too, because it's just so unfair,
Yeah.
you know.
No, it is, and let me ask you this, Ethan. I've obviously never been a professional athlete. Anybody who looks at me can tell that. But I've been on teams with people. I've been part of uh, groups of employees, and I wonder. I wonder how much. Said it before in the past. Like if you're Brant Clark and your minutes are constantly, being yo-yoed, and you sort of
Yep.
do everything that is asked of you, and the minutes aren't there. I don't know, what effect does that have on you? What effect does that have on the room? If if the coach won't play the fourth line, and then the general manager goes out and signs 2 veterans to play on the fourth line, and then those veterans find themselves on the top line and and the number
Yep.
one power play. What does that say to the second and third liners who are not having their minutes increased? Does that have a trickle down effect? Does it start to create a mood in the room where guys look around and go, "Wait, what?" And this is pure speculation on my part. I don't know if that's how it works, but I have to imagine it's at least part of it.
No, it does. It absolutely has to. Like I play hockey. I'm on a team, and I've been on other teams where it's like, you know what, you don't get subbed in, or you just feel like you're not important to the team. And I kind of feels that way. Like it looks like it on the ice, at least to me. Like just the guys are kind of just playing lousy sometimes. Like it just looks like it. You can feel it too. It doesn't feel, I don't know how to say it, like sporadic, or just like wanting, like they want to win. Who doesn't want to win? Who doesn't want to win hockey games,
Sure.
or win in general?
And I, let's be clear here. Like they did have multiple games where they came back from huge deficits. So I don't feel like everybody's checked out or anything. But I asked the team before they went on the first road trip, right? Like, is it a good thing or a bad thing that these comebacks are happening? Because on the one hand, great that you can do it, but bad that you have to. You can only do it for so long, right? Like if you're constantly allowing your opponent to score 3 unanswered goals, I mean, that's another huge part of it, is just getting behind in games. And what are you supposed to do? Jacob says this team has no power of friendship. You're not wrong, Jacob. Eldridge says Andrew Knoll said this is the most deflated he's seen Hiller after a game. Ethan, I appreciate you coming on to rant. I'm going to end this now. By the way, if you want to join me the way Ethan did, you can scan that QR code up in the upper right-hand corner. And if you're watching on your phone, you can take a screen capture, make sure that you're zoomed in so that the QR code has a high resolution. Then you can just click on the QR code once you open it up in your photos, and it should bring you into the background. of the studio. Sorry, the comment about deflated Jim Hiller. Yeah, it was a tough go in LA when they open up the room, and they don't open, to be clear, they don't open up the room. They let the players clear out, and then they bring the players out one at a time for a scrum. And there wasn't a ton to ask, right? Like, what do you ask? What do you ask Trevor Moore or Mikey Anderson, right? Like, Mikey Anderson played well. Mikey Anderson had an assist. Mikey Anderson's not on the power play. He's not out there for that shorthanded goal against. Mikey Anderson was on the ice for 1 goal for and 1 goal against in his 16 minutes and 3 seconds of overall play. Like, Mikey Anderson, not to blame for this one. Trevor Moore, going to try and find him on the night. Trevor Moore, 12 minutes, 3 seconds on the ice for 2 goals against, no goals for. Team's about to go on the road. Virtually nobody in the post-game scrum travels to cover the team. So you have this like one random opportunity. So it's a tough situation. And do I look blurry? I feel like the camera got blurry all of a sudden. Sorry. Where was I going with any of this? Oh yeah, Jim Hiller looking deflated. Then we get to the post-game press conference with Jim Hiller, and the questions, and this is just my opinion, so nobody quote me on this, but like, I think that coaches are not dumb. Players are not dumb. Everybody understands the subtext of the questions. So when the starting question is, what was the most disappointing part of the game tonight? I think everybody understands that what's happening is you can't look at another person in that setting and say, your team was god awful tonight. What happened? The team is disappointing. What's going on? What are you going to do to fix it? Like, you can't be aggressive in these settings. It's still a professional setting. So the question has to be finessed and phrased in a way that is, what was the most disappointing part of the game tonight? But I think everybody understands what's really being asked. And in a post-game media availability like that, it's really just a group of people trying to find the nicest possible way to get the coach to say something more than, that was really disappointing, we got to be better. Because no shit, pardon my language. But like, yeah, we know that. Everybody knows that. It was a disappointing game. The fans booed. You lost 5-2. You got your doors blown off. We get it. So, we're here, you're here. The league makes this exchange happen. So give us something interesting. And it's tough. My question was not exactly great, and the answer was fairly predictable. I asked, you end a homestand like this with a game like that, and then you go on a long road trip. You have 2 days off now. Is that a good thing? Or would you rather shake the dust off of this one and get right back at it? It's a pretty pedestrian question, not a great question. But I hoped maybe the answer might reveal something about their plans, and it kind of did. He talked about practice and how they haven't had a lot of practice time. It's an early game on Sunday against Pittsburgh, so they have 2 days off, but they've got to fly tomorrow, then an early game on Sunday, so they'll have a practice on Saturday. So we'll see. But yeah, deflected or dejected, whatever you want to say, deflated, dejected. Yeah, Jim Hiller was definitely not in a great mood. He didn't, torch anybody. He didn't hold anybody up for specific criticism, but he was pretty frank about it. Matt says, team lost to the 2-time champs. They had money on the board with Marchand not accepting a trade. It's whatever. Yeah, no, that's fine, Matt. It is whatever. And listen, I don't want to make too big a deal of it, but, and I think this is the part that gets me agitated when people leap to the defense of things, is we're starting to see patterns now. And you can defend in isolated incidents, but you can't defend patterns. And whether it's the shorthanded goals or the puck over the glass penalties or games where they allow, the opponent to score 3 unanswered goals, like, yes, teams lose. This one sucked, as Matt says. Sure. But at some point, if you have more this one sucked than not, that's a problem. And the point of being a fan and the point of doing shows like this and participating in communities to talk about it is to explore and to talk about what we've seen. So yeah, it's not a big deal. It's one loss. If they go on this road trip and they go 5-1 or 4-2, all is forgotten. And this just becomes one more game. But given that they went, 1-3 on this homestand, I think, just not great. Eldridge says, when's the last time the team had a lot of practice time? Feels like we've heard that excuse since Todd's first time under scrutiny. I'm glad that you brought that up because, yeah, the thing with practice time is, yes, the union mandates certain amounts of time, for days off. And yes, the team has travel days. And yes, there are all these things. But like every time they have a practice day, then the next day is an optional skate. And I'm not suggesting that there's much to be gained out of an optional skate, but maybe don't make those days optional skates if your team is struggling and you're trying to figure out what's missing. Like maybe make them practice more. I don't know. I do think I do agree with you, Eldridge. 33.99. It has felt like that's been kind of a consistent thing where it's like, all right, well, do other teams practice? Is it just the Kings who don't have time to practice? I don't know. It seems odd to me as well. Maybe I'm just in fact, I know I'm overreacting. Everything I've said tonight has been an overreaction because I don't like coming to games like this and just watching the team lose like that. It's just not fun. I don't know. Would Kopi and Drew even show up to a bag skate? I don't know. I suspect they wouldn't even have to make that decision because I don't think that they would be subjected to it. They had a 12-minute practice in the first month of the season after sucking it home. So there you go. I know you're not being facetious, Jacob. I wasn't either in my response. I mean, so the practice, was it yesterday, I think? Yeah, the practice yesterday, which was scheduled for an hour, was done 25 minutes in, and it wasn't terribly strenuous or long or structured. I was there, didn't see a ton. Optional skate this morning, very poorly attended. Optional skate Tuesday, very poorly attended. The one practice earlier this week where we got all the changes, with Perry up to the top power play unit and Kuzmenko down at the third line and Dumoulin and Ceci back together, that was a full hour practice. There's a ton to talk about. But yeah, generally speaking, they don't go real hard on the practices, and I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. So I'm hesitant to talk about it too much because I don't know. I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing. I also don't know how common it is in the National Hockey League. I don't want to sit here and say, oh yeah, the Kings are notoriously light on the practices and on their players, because I have no idea if the Boston Bruins or the Montreal Canadiens do it any differently. I don't know if the Toronto Maple Leafs are out there skating every other day for a full hour. Like I just don't know. I don't pay that close attention to the practice habits of the other 31 teams. Do I think Hiller is losing the room? No, I don't think Hiller is losing the room. But I also think that the idea that all of the, so how do I want to say this? Listen, he's the head coach. It's his job to control it. Whether it's his fault or not, that's the job of the head coach. So whether or not he's lost the room, I think is kind of irrelevant. Jim Hiller has nothing to do with Adrian Kempe's contract negotiations. Jim Hiller has nothing to do with Anshe Kopitar announcing that he's going to retire at the end of the year. Jim Hiller has nothing to do with how well the goaltenders play. Jim Hiller has nothing to do with whether or not a random player decides to flip the puck over the glass. There's a million different things that Jim Hiller has no direct control over. But at the end of the day, the coaching staff's job is to be responsible for the overall result and effort of the team. And if the questions keep coming, what's wrong with this team? It feels like something's off. It feels like they should be better than they are. What's wrong? What's wrong? What's wrong? What's wrong? That's a sign that something's wrong. I don't know what. I wish I had some sort of brilliant, perceptive insight as to what I think it is. I think it's probably a lot of things. But the fact that I don't think anybody seems to have a very clear cut, that's not true. I've heard a couple of really stark arguments about what it is, and I'm not comfortable sharing them, but most people don't seem to have a really solid answer. A couple people I've spoken to have a sort of dismissive, you know what, they're just not that good. What are you supposed to do? It's like, okay, great. But this team's supposed to be better than just not that good. After the shorty to go down 4-2 might have been a good time to call a timeout. Yes, I agree. Totally. Or maybe don't give up the shorthanded goal. Maybe, and the runway on this 5-man power play doesn't appears to be too long for my liking. I understood when it was working, it seemed revolutionary and awesome, but it's not working anymore. It's costing them games. It's costing them momentum. And now it's 2 games on this homestand. The shorthanded goal has come at a pivotal time in the game. Jim Miller mentioned it in his press conference tonight. He said, we're down 1 and we're on the power play. That's an opportunity to tie it. And instead it's 4-2. So, he knows, right? You'd have to be mired in self-delusion to not realize what an unbelievably dangerous thing it is to have a power play that leaks goals to the opponent. But yeah, no timeout, no restructuring of the power play, no substantive changes that I noticed anyway. I don't know, maybe they shuffled the lines completely after that point and I just wasn't paying attention and didn't notice. But yeah, I don't know. You guys, this is a tough one. It's not fun to watch the team struggle like that. It's not fun at all. You're welcome, Matt. Sometimes, listen, I'm not a huge fan of swearing, but sometimes that's what's called for. Sometimes there's just no other way to put it. So it is what it is. We're going to wrap it up here. We've gone about 50 minutes, and I don't know if you guys can tell or not, but my throat hurts. And given my health situation, it's all extra nerve-wracking. So I'm going to wrap it up. Thank you for joining me. This will be available. Actually, before I go, I will plug a bunch of stuff right now. Cameron Gaunce and I have started a podcast. It's called Hybrid Icing. I'm very proud of it. I'm a big fan of Cameron. It's an opportunity to hear from a professional hockey player about his life as a professional hockey player, what he's doing now that he's not a professional hockey player anymore. I'll tease a little bit. I bumped into somebody in the bowels of crypto.com arena this morning and invited him to be a guest, and he said yes. So we're going to have a pretty big profile guest coming up on Hybrid Icing. I would encourage you to go listen, go find it, subscribe, hit the like button and all that. I'm going to be doing practice reports and morning skates. So however you consume these, eyes and ears open, because I'm going to keep doing it. When they're on the road, it's tougher to do morning skate and practice reports, but I'll try and keep doing these one form or another. And we'll start scheduling more of these sort of live. Now that I'm figuring out what I can and can't do, we're going to do more of these live things, and we'll figure out ways to incorporate the audience more into it. So subscribe on YouTube, follow me on Facebook, on Twitter, whatever. It is on YouTube, KingHouse798. If you go to the Royal Half Radio at YouTube under the live tab, everything I've done so far is all under there. So yeah, there's a ton of ways to consume everything I do. I'm committed to following this team, win, lose, or draw. But for now, I'm going to wrap it up because I'm going to go home. And we will continue this. The next one of these will be on Sunday after the Pittsburgh game. And we'll talk to you soon, Kings. Oh, wait, hold on. All right, this is going to be risky, but I'm going to add Matt. What's going on, Matt? Nope. Matt, you're muted. All right, well.
Oh,
Matt,
hey, how's it going?
There? Good, how are you?
Good. I was just trying to get in the chat. Didn't think I'd be pulled, but thanks for having me.
All right.
But yeah, I'll take it. I was listening to Russell's post-game
Oh, I didn't realize he did one. Okay. Yeah.
And very, very valid. And I think I speak for a lot of us, and I'm sure it's been mentioned several times. It's just the same old boring dump and chase hockey. My question for you would be, you hit on it a little earlier about, is it time to panic? And I think we're definitely kind of at that point now. 15 games in, something's got to change. But does this really change Kempe's thoughts or desires to want to stay? Do the Kings dish him out and see what they can get? What would that change be in your humble opinion?
Well, I don't know because I'm not Adrian Kempe, but you have to imagine it would, right? If I'm so somebody mentioned earlier tonight the Vladislav Gavrikov's name, and I'm just going to use him as an example here real quick because he's the most recent example that we have. People wondered why Vladislav Gavrikov left, and I suggested at the time that he left. I'm looking up some stats here real quick so I can back up my argument. My suggestion when he left was as simple as he was the number one minutes getter on the team before Drew Doughty returned from injury. And after Drew Doughty returned, he became the fourth most minutes getting player on the roster. He was never going to be a number one defenseman here. And in New York, my understanding is that he and Adam Fox are the top pair. Yeah, he's playing 23 minutes and 2 seconds a night for the New York Rangers. He and Adam Fox, I believe, are their top pair. So just to bring up Adrian Kempe, yeah, Kempe is an unrestricted free agent. He's at the point in his career where he can decide where he wants to spend the next 8 years of his career. And he's an incredible player. He'll get whatever he wants. There's no, like, this whole, if one more person brings up his market value or says he's not worth X amount of dollars, I just don't believe that's how it works. I just don't. And I understand that it is talked about by everybody as if that is how it works. I just don't believe it is. Adrian Kempe is the last man standing at the table. He's the last high-profile unrestricted free agent. He'll get paid more than he's worth because of that factor alone. So if I'm Adrian Kempe and you know Andrei Kopitar is retiring at the end of the year, you don't know if Kuzmenko is going to come back. You don't know if Clark is going to get an extension, what kind of extension, if he's going to get traded. You don't know who the general manager is going to be. Kempe signs a contract today. Ken Holland retires again 2 or 3 years from now. Who's the next general manager? Does Adrian Kempe want to play for the next general manager? Who's the next head coach? Who knows? Now, does that matter? Maybe not. Maybe Adrian Kempe wants financial security. Maybe he wants 8 years at $15 million a year, and if you pay him that, then fine, he'll sign. I have no idea. I am not Adrian Kempe. But these are just things that I have to imagine play out in his mind. So I've said before, if I'm Adrian Kempe's agent, I'm telling him not to sign today. Wait as long as you can. Yes, you run the risk of injuring yourself and hurting your bargaining position down the road, but that's the gamble, I suppose. And if you win your gamble, you could make an extra, who knows how, tens of millions of dollars. And this could be it for Kempe. If Kempe signs an 8-year contract, that could be the last huge contract he ever signs. Now, if he wants to sign like a 3-year contract or a 4-year contract, he'd be setting himself up for another big contract, assuming that there's no lockout and the cap keeps going up. But that's a separate risk and equation and all of that. So, I mean, I don't know if that answered your question, Matt, but I feel like there are all sorts of things that have to go into it.
No, for sure. I appreciate your insight. I'm trying to think because a big topic that keeps getting thrown around, or I should say phrase, is like something's missing and what is it? And it's, are we looking ahead, in 20 games at the end of the season? Do we like barely squeak in and get in the playoffs? Or are we going to kind of look at next year? And like,
I'm just going to jump in real quick. If
absolutely.
the LA Kings don't make the playoffs this year, I don't think looking at next year is a viable solution. I think if the Kings don't make the playoffs this year, it's a catastrophe, or seen as a catastrophe. I could be wrong, but
no, I mean, I agree. I don't know, something seems to be missing, and just kind of hopping around each Kings podcast and seeing if there's a link. Is there any kind of common trend of what this missing piece would be? It's just, we love our team, we love our boys. It's just, It gets disappointing sometimes watching a game. And I mean, you got to think about how the players feel. You're in your home barn and everyone's booing you or booing the game.
Yeah, I mean, so Trevor Moore was asked if he heard the boos. He said he didn't. Had we been given more time with Jim Hiller and had the mood been slightly different, I was wanting to ask him how the coaching staff handles it. Now, unfortunately, they go on the road, so there's no opportunity to ask him after a practice. The next time I have a chance to talk to Jim Hiller will be 2-3 weeks from now. So I doubt that the boos will be referenced again, which is a shame because I think, I used to apologize on behalf of the team when I'd hear the fans boo, and I'm not going to do that now because I don't work for the team anymore, so there's nothing for me to apologize for. But I do think it's important, and I think it should be discussed that, like, You had a half, well, I don't know about half full. You didn't have a full house tonight for the fourth home game in a row. You didn't have a full arena of fans. And the fans that were here were audibly booing at the end of a homestand. That's tough. That's not a great look. And I do think it ought to be talked about. And shame on me for not asking. I should have asked tonight in the post-game press conference. So shame on me. Apologies. That I will apologize for. I was a coward. I didn't ask about it.
No. Like you said, it's a professional setting, and it's all about reading the room, right? Like, that question may have landed, may have not. So there's nothing to apologize about.
Well, the person I want to be would have asked. Eric says, my opinion, Kempe is not wanting to sign trade him. I don't think it's as simple as that, but I also don't think it's as simple, Eric, as people constantly saying, well, he wants to be here. He wants to be here assuming they meet his demands. It's two very different things. Matt, thank you very much for joining me. I appreciate it. I'm going to remove you here, and we are going to wrap this up. Thanks, everybody, for watching, and be safe out there. And like I said, we will do this again after the Pittsburgh game on Sunday. Oh, you know what? Haha. This time I remembered, though. Oh, no. I've shrunk my screen. Hold on. Because I like this song so much, I'm going to play my outro music before I end the show because I want you all to hear this song. I love it. All right, now we're ending it with the Pittsburgh game. Bye.